Welcome again to React the Narrative. It's okay to be curious. So, welcome to React the Narrative. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell for future video uploads. Drop a comment. Now, with this conversation that's been brewing, I didn't start this topic. Something that I think it's an ongoing conversation, but the big question is it an important conversation? I want to take a look at this clip from Sportsmax actually, because I think it's a big enough conversation, but it's also a good conversation. The question is, should we restrict international athletes from competing in the boys and girls track and field championships? I'm gonna find this video really quick. If you can hear me, I'm testing the microphone right now. If you can hear me, please drop a 1 in the chat. Please drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear. So the big question is, I made this video recently asking, thank you, Journey with Kalim. So can you hear me? If you can hear me, just drop a 1. So I make sure. Good night. All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Maybe I should go ahead and start with some comments from this specific video that I created. I'll go ahead and share this screen. And the question was, should Jamaica restrict international athletes from participating in the ISA Boys and Girls Championship? I think it's a good question. It's a question that is being asked. So far, Jamaica had 100 athletes participating in the ISA Boys and Girls Championship in this past championship. So I'm gonna read the comments just because I know the comments are important. Randall Campbell said that Trinidad and Tobago and Bahamas may have more money than us, but there is some things in life that money cannot buy. That the gift of talent. Hey, Jan Mark, good night. Pick up yourself. Day 1. Pick up yourself, Jan Mark. So there are some gifts in life that money cannot buy. My question is, why is this now a thing? Honestly, it's a good question. It's truly a good question, because everybody wants to upgrade their talent. Everybody wants to upgrade, and at the moment they have to research. And every country that did research, they get better, and usually on the backs of the whoever is the star at the moment. So right now, Jamaica is the star talent, and I think that they are concerned, because it's not just us. It's not just the people, the regular people asking the question. But I'm gonna go through the comments real quickly before I play the video, the Sportsman video, because they're the one that steers the conversation. They started the conversation first. David Scott, I think you are trying to find a story. Full-time Jamaica cut up the doom and gloom mentality. For some reason, we like to look at negative aspect of things instead of hailing the positive, while going ahead believing we can build and progress on what we have done thus far. We have a scrap and go mentality. All right, big up yourself, David Scott. It is a conversation. I'm sure that your opinion is valid as much as Journey with Kelly's. any athlete, right? Um, I think all opinions are valid at the moment, but it is a conversation. And why is there a conversation? Rightfully asked by Jan Mark. Why is there a conversation? If there is a conversation, it means that something is brewing. There is something brewing. From the chat again, Jan Mark said, someone's money hurting, and perhaps that's why they're asking for a pullback. Join with Kelly. And remember, we are CARICOM countries, and Jamaica can go to other Caribbean islands and do likewise. Well, the thing is this: they're not saying that you should eliminate them from coming. They're just saying that they should put a limit on this. This is a conversation that started with the principals of the high schools. The principals voted against having too many international students. It was not just the people, just us, the people, saying that there shouldn't be that many athletes. It's the principals of the schools that were saying that. Let's go to another one here. Randall, I don't see Bahamas as rival in track and field. America is our main rival. You know what? There was a time when Jamaica could not beat the United States. They couldn't. We had real problems beating them, and it's because of that determination and consistency, keep trying attitude. That's how we became a powerhouse. And all those other countries that are saying that all those other countries that see Jamaica as rivals, they are studying, they're preparing, and somehow they will become a powerhouse at some point. Jamaica need to cut out the anxiety and demand what is needed from our leaders. Now, this is where I think David Scott, I think this is important, because infrastructure, that is the problem that I'm having. Let me play this video really quickly, right? Let me play this video a little bit. Jamaica has done right and continues to do right, and that's the ISA Boys and Girls Championship. Every year, Jamaica has been competing at very high levels, producing exceptional athletes, and they're doing a very good job. Continues to do a very good job. The issue is that we also need to learn from how we are being treated. Jamaica had been a worker arse. They are entertainers, no entrepreneurs, just entertainers. Even the athletes who are making the fortune that could change the status of the sport, they continue to be entertainers and keep chasing. Welcome again to Ride the Narrative, where it's okay to be curious. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification. And that thing like dancehall, most known and recognized for. We produce them. We're happy that they're there, but we have no infrastructure, nothing to provide. All right, I'm sorry about that. So the Trinidad and Tobago president of secondary track and field sports, he traveled to Jamaica, and he's reading the blueprint. He decided that they wanted to emulate whatever they're seeing in Jamaica, because they think that Jamaica is doing a good job. They want to emulate it, and they commended Jamaica for doing a lot of things right, most of which they want to bring back to their country, which is good. I like the fact that Jamaica is doing something right. I agree with the fact that Jamaica should be doing something right, because over the years, Jamaica, they have talent, and we kind of overlook Champs, because Champs is just, it's going right, it's just good. But when the world start watching, when people start looking at what we have, then they start researching. That's when a problem could arise. I want to use the example with cricket, because I watch a lot of cricket. T20 cricket, Jamaica is really good. They're good enough. Jamaica had some big names in T20 cricket, but Jamaica does not have a T20 franchise. They keep outsourcing the talent. They have the talent going to chase it everywhere. At this point, Jamaica, as a team, they can find players, but they cannot gel as a national team. They're struggling because the infrastructure outside of the country is where people are going. People are going outside of the country to get jobs, to get recognition, just to keep relevance. Jamaica have a good thing going in champs, but having a country come in to learn the blueprint, or having the students going somewhere else to study, having the student coming into the country, ultimately you'll find Jamaica's talent starting to dwindle, because the ones who could get developed or get built, they may not even get an opportunity to represent the country. That's where I'm going with this. If Jamaica is able to invite schools from outside the country, other schools, invite schools to come in and participate as a school. So they put together their best and they come in and participate as a school and compete against the Jamaican school. I think that's fine. That would be a very good thing. But having them trained and compete and take a slot, because again, in order to compete in boys and girl champs, you have to compete by heats, and I think there are a limit to how many athletes can compete from each school in each class 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have a certain amount of athletes. So if the athlete is coming from a different country and they're competing from their country and they have enough athletes to compete from heat 1 to 4, then I think that is okay. But having them coming into the schools in Jamaica and taking a spot from another athlete who could get developed, who could get exposure, who could build their confidence, then there's a problem. That's where the problem comes in. It's not really that you'd want to restrict anybody from coming into Jamaica and competing in Jamaica. The problem is when you give the spot to somebody else from outside of the country who could have been really deliberate in their approach to coming into Jamaica. They have an entire country behind them. They have they have Olympic hopes behind them. They have money behind them. This restrict our athletes, our future athletes, from developing, getting the confidence that they need, etc. There are so many different things that could come into play by inviting too many athletes. And I'm not saying that we want to prevent athletes from coming in. It's just that if you invite too many athletes to come and participate as athletes, then the problem is that the Jamaican athletes, they may not get an opportunity. And remember, Jamaica would have been grooming their athletes from primary school. And then when they got to secondary school, they would have been developing that talent so that they could get to that elite level and then step into and get opportunities into colleges or into the senior team, etc. But having athletes coming in to Jamaica to participate under a school flag, that kind of take away. What do you think? I don't know if I'm wrong with this, but I just feel like that's one of the problem that could come from it. I'm gonna drop a question here. What are some benefits of restricting international students from participating in ISA Boys and Girl Championship? That's a question that I would really love to see at least an answer from. What do you think are some of the benefits that comes from it? If you bring the athletes, what benefits the athletes get? What benefits would the event get from having those athletes coming? I could say, all right, the benefit that the event would get is that the athletes coming in, they may be really high level athletes, and those high level athletes could potentially push our Jamaican athletes to an extra limit. And then the competitive edge of losing to a different athlete, it may cause these athletes to do their best. I'm gonna go ahead, as I said before. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll play the Sports Max. I'm gonna play that Sports Max video, especially since they are the ones driving the conversation. I was just asking the question only because I saw that question. So I'm gonna I'm gonna just I'm gonna play the Sports Max. All right. So here we go. I wanted to play this earlier, but here we go.
These athletes taking part in high school sports in Jamaica continues to be a major topic of discussion. Debate intensified following the recent ISA Boys and Girls Athletics Championships, where over 100 non-Jamaican athletes took part. This phenomenon does not only affect track and field, though, but is also quite prevalent in football. On Tuesday, the president of the Intersecondary School Sports Association, ISA, Keith Wellington, revealed that the principals who formed ISA voted in January to limit the number of overseas athletes competing in Jamaican high school sports. These athletes will form part of the existing quota system. It is important to note overseas athletes who start school in Jamaica before the age of 16 will not be part of the quota system. The new rules, which come into effect on September 1 this year, will also not affect overseas athletes who have already registered for ISA competitions. Joining us is our athletics expert, Leighton Levy. Leighton, how are you doing today?
All right, so I just wanted to piggyback off this. He's saying that there's a quota system, and the quota system is, I think, where you have heats in the boys and girl championship. MH, big up yourself. Thanks for joining the live. So you're saying that it should stay open. How open? Because this is where the principals are voting against allowing too many students. It's not like they're saying we're not going to allow students, but it seems like they're voting against allowing too many students. How open do you think it should be? And what benefits do you think comes from allowing students or restricting students? Right now, you have 100 students, and this may not be a lot. It may not be a lot seeing 100 students participating in the boys and girls championship. It might just be a small amount, especially with the amount of students that participate throughout in the event. It's a lot of students. Janet Kelly saying it's a lot. When you put it into perspective, it's a lot of students. But again, maybe they're not elite. There are students who are trying to become elite athletes. But why? That's one of the questions. Why would the principals, the ones who create our form ISA, why would they want to put that restriction? MH is saying it's not a Jamaica boys and girls champs. If we keep doing this, we have enough talent for champs to keep champs competitive. When you said it should, because here you said it should stay open. Oh, open to Jamaican. Sorry, man. I'm sorry. So you're saying it should stay open to Jamaica. My view is this: we should keep something for ourselves, have a pride, and continue to build on it and continue to be elite. That's what I think. I think we should stay elite. And if we're not elite, we try to get elite, which we are elite in this. And just reading what the president from Trinidad and Tobago was saying. He was saying that it was professional from the athletes, the knowledge that the athletes have, the coaches, everybody was just so knowledgeable, and they wanted to learn and replicate and be scientific about it. When you use terms like being scientific about something, it means that you're going to research it, you're going to put it into practice, you're going to do whatever you can to get your team up to the level. That's what I see when I see that. And just seeing how most sports are, they would get the best from wherever they can get them from and get them to do whatever they want them to do. And after they get to the point where they need to go, then they would distance themselves and say, hey, you know what? We are who we are because of how we are. And it may or may not have anything to do with who they collaborated with. So, Sports Max, let's see what they were continuing to say.
Here at work as usual. At home today, but I'm good.
Let me get your initial. Let me get. Thank you very much, Leighton. Whatever you said just now, I'm sure it was really nice. Your reaction to the news that the number of overseas athletes able to participate per school in Jamaican high school sports will be limited?
there are two sides to it as far as that's what I'm feeling right now. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it feels kind of xenophobic. We don't want anybody else here threatening the prowess of our athletes in Jamaica, our high school athletes, and taking their places possibly on teams for champs, especially, and schoolboy football and basketball. I mean, not so much hockey and some of the other sports that are being bandied about. But on the other hand, you're looking at denying kids an opportunity to come here that potentially could develop here and also to make our athletes even better. I mean, let's go back just a few years ago to Aaron Rodgers when he came to Kingston College. I don't think anybody can deny that the standard of our middle distance running has improved since then. It had fallen off for years from back in the 1980s. And then there was a steady increase in performances. The times came down significantly over the last few years since Aaron Rodgers went to KC. So that's how I see it. Because they didn't really give a reason in the report I read. They didn't give a reason for the decision to have these quotas now. But it just feels like it's a knee-jerk reaction to perhaps 100 athletes at champs this year, which is 0.05% of the total number of athletes competing. So I don't know, it's kind of making a mountain out of a molehill in terms of trying to add a quota where a quota wasn't really needed.
Yeah,
Right,
how do you
okay.
feel
So
specifically about
this is a sports writer giving his comment, right? Okay, let's see. Image is saying that champs is the building blocks of our program. Keep it pure. Importing other athletes at this champs level is a bit much. I agree. Importing other athletes at this level is kind of limiting the and it might dilute it, because if you really have a country behind an athlete, that athlete can go really, really far versus an athlete who is coming from a rural area with very little and just have the hopes of his family behind him. That it makes a difference. Just having that athlete coming out and seeing what's possible when money gets involved, and then politics and bureaucracy get involved, which will get involved, especially when sports is the building blocks behind a country. The pride and joy of any country is sports. You just look at how the countries are shut down for sports. It's the pride and joy of any country. So I can agree. Image is saying that I am a former champs athlete, and that's just my 5 cents. There is so much talent in the ghetto still undiscovered, I believe. I think we should keep nurturing the unknown talent. And I agree completely. That's what I was saying. The ghetto is one aspect of it. The rural areas, that's another space. But I really believe that in importing athletes, you're going to import the elite athletes. You're going to import those with the backing of a country, the backing of a sponsor, and it could drown out some of the regular everyday athletes. That's a problem. That's one of the potential problem. However, one of the benefit is that you may get an elite athlete that pushes you beyond where you have ever gone before, as stated by Sportsmax just now. Another benefit, or one of the more potential benefit that I think could come from this, is having the best schools from each country, if they choose, put together their best, pick a group of athletes, put together your best group of athletes, send them to champs, have them compete, and if they win, if that school, if there's an athlete that is able to win the 100 meter, the 200 meter, and become champion boy or champion girl, then they get that accolade. That would have suggested that they are better than the Jamaican. But having them trained and sent to champs, that makes a little more sense to me than having them going to Jamaica, training there, getting into the heats, pushing out a potential athlete who is not as elite and may not have a future similar to theirs. I think that we can help to develop athletes, just like how you'll find, like MVP, for example. MVP You could have the athletes go train at the MVP. I'm not sure if MVP accept junior athletes, but if you want to send them to a club, then send them to a club. Have them participate from that club, and if that club want to um send them back to their country to join their school, or if the club want to have a group of junior athletes compete against the school, those elite schools, then it's okay. You want to win the 100 meter, the 200 meter, or whatever, the school athletes would just know that they have strong competition coming in. But having them going into the schools and taking a place in those heats, in those classes, class one, class two, class three, class four, it poses a problem. So I can see why the principals would say no.
Whether the quota system is required. Remember, a quota system already existed for local transfers. So if you are an athlete in Jamaica transferring from one ISA school to another, you would become part of a quota system. Now, to just quickly explain the quota system in terms of the numbers, in team sports where you have 11 players on a team, the quota is 3 overseas athletes, 3 transferred athletes. In track and field, 2 athletes per class. And so now the non-Jamaican athletes will fall into that quota system. What's your own feeling as to whether this whole quota system is necessary?
Well, it is necessary in the sense that you want to be able to give athletes an opportunity to develop and to represent their schools. I mean, you don't want a whole bunch of kids coming in from all over the world to then deny your young athletes an opportunity to develop and to grow. But you just said it, the system is already in place. I don't think you needed an additional amendment to compensate for athletes from overseas. It's not like they're coming here by the tens of thousands. They're coming here in maybe tens and 20s, if that makes.
All right. Yeah, MH, you're saying, but we have so much talent. I think the collegiate and club level importing athlete talent is fine. Program in later years suffers from good coaching and technology. I fully agree. And I'm not trivializing this. He's saying that they're not coming by the drones, like tens of thousands and so on and so forth. We really don't have tens of thousands of athletes competing at champs. If they were coming in by the tens of thousands, then it would have been something completely different. It would have been diluted as well. But if they start coming by the hundreds, then they'll start coming by the 200s, then the 300s. And I'm not saying that they should not come. I'm just saying that if they're coming from a particular country, have a school, a mixture of schools come together and send one school unit to boys and girls champs per country. That's what I think would be most beneficial. You send a school to represent your country, a school with similar age groups. That would work at least to some extent, versus saying that, trivializing it to the point where you have 3 elite athletes, but only 2 can represent from a class, right? You have 3 elite athletes, only 2 per class, but one of your elite athletes get omitted from representing because somebody else from somewhere else who have a lot of support and backing, technological advancement and finances behind them are in that competition as well. That's where the problem comes in. It's not being trivial. It's just being conscious and cautious, because the future, the athletes who are traveling to get the highest level of competition, they're doing it because they remember in the future. They remember that the future athletes from Jamaica started in champs. So they want to get their kickstart from champs, but they could get it a different way. Have a school of athletes travel there to Jamaica and participate. That's how I feel about that one. Image, this is going to make our system corrupted and we are going to suffer more as a nation. I really agree. I agree, because Jamaica have this tendency of either buying into the things are selling out. That's how I feel. I might say, all right, I saw another comment under the video, one of the videos, the video I did, saying that I am that Jamaica outsource for things that they cannot do for themselves, and they cited the highway as an example, because if we had waited for Jamaicans to build that highway, it wouldn't have happened. Fully agree. Jamaica's outsourced really, really good engineers to build a highway, but Jamaica doesn't need to outsource athletes to represent in champs. They don't really need to outsource athletes to develop in champs. All they need to do is continue to build their athletes, have a core of athletes, because it's proven that Jamaica athletes, they continues to be the best. They continues to push up, they continue to perform at high levels. And after a while, they will start to feel like there are no real incentive anymore. The one thing, and a lot of people don't even recognize that this is what keeps champs being champs. It's the rivalries between the schools. They built up rivalries, whether you want to see it as healthy or not. The rivalry is number one. Number two is the local fans cheering for their school. But then what about when you're cheering for your school, but the athlete is not from your school? It's not really from your school, because when it's time to represent the country, the athletes, they're representing a different country. You see how the problem starts? The genuine fan base would be diminished, and the fan base is what keep the sports going. That's what I think. Journey with Kelly. What if the athletes started at the primary school or grade 7? It still poses a problem, only because when the athletes decide to represent a different country, you are cheering for an athlete. You can cheer for them. You like them. Yes, we like you. Yes, good. But if that athlete could run under a school from a different country, which doesn't take away from the athletes who are already there, who would have missed out on getting a champs record, are having their names engraved into the junior championship because somebody else got their space in the heat, in the class 1 or class 2 or class 3. That's where the problem is. Let's say, for example, they come into Jamaica, they train there, they go to school, but they are a national from a different country. And when they decide to run, they represent that country. That still works. That still works. And then they engrave as wherever they came from, right? Because at that point, they wouldn't have taken the opportunity from another athlete being discovered. That's and it could be, my point of view could be flawed. It might be flawed. The reason why these people come in is because coaching in Jamaica is world class now, and it must be deliberate that coaching in Jamaica is world class. It could not be some random thing that continues for years or even decades. It must be something deliberate, and as soon as you figure out why it's deliberate, then something else is gonna change, right? The coaching in Jamaica, I think, is that a lot of the coaches in Jamaica they moved from the senior level to the junior level. And just like how in football, you have Premier League coaches going down to the ISA boys and girls coaches level. And I think it's genius. The highest level of coaches start in the middle, right there in the middle, not primary, not college, right there in the middle. It suggests that when you get to college and to that elite level, you are already prepared. You're already you started working with elite coaches from very early. And that's where the difference might be. It could be where the difference is. They're studying already. Somebody will crack that code. MH. That's what we need to keep developing and then export those coaches. I think this is what the focus should be. To some extent, if you export the coaches, it's okay. To some extent, it's okay because the coaches, they are part of the success, but I really still believe the fans are the true success. I think whenever a sport start losing their fans, That's when the sport start to diminish. The superstar will be a superstar, but if nobody cheers for you, then continue to be you cannot continue to perform at that level. Your rival need to be strong. You need to have really, really good rivals, and you need to have really, really passionate fans. And that's, for example, still I'm going to go back to cricket in the West Indies, in Jamaica, especially Jamaica playing cricket, and they are not motivated. It's because the stands are empty. Nobody's going to the stands. Think about Carifta, the one that just passed, right? What if we had to watch the boys and girl champs from the TV screen while all the athletes travel overseas somewhere where only a handful of fans show up? Do you think that they would still perform at the same level that they are performing now? I don't think so. I think the fans have a major part in it. And the first part of destroying the fans is to give them athletes to support that are not their athletes. If that make any sense. I don't know if it makes sense to somebody else, but my mind kind of work weird. If you're cheering for, let's say you go to a school and it's the school that your children or your daughter, your son represents, right? And you're cheering for the team that your daughter or your son is a part of. You are invested in that. That's your daughter or son's team. Now, if your daughter or son move to a different school, do you still cheer for the school that your daughter or son attended in the past? I don't think you would. You still remember there's a place in your heart for them. I think it's pretty much the same if you give the Jamaican crowd an athlete to cheer for who will ultimately goes to the world championship and compete against your people and compete against you. You like them, you love them, you want them to win, you want them to run and do well and stay healthy, but you want your group to win. And that's how you will start destroying champs. That's how you will start destroying a fan base. You give them a group to cheer for that is not their group. That's where a problem is. And that's how you think long term. The long term vision is that you send them to the country to develop. Ultimately, they bring something back and develop their own. Then they will start to apply it. And then ultimately they crack the code. It's the fans. It's the fans and the rivals. Jamaica cricketers have no fans, and they almost have no rivals. They have a few teams, like two teams. If there's a competition in cricket in Jamaica right now, and they sent all the senior cup cricket teams, two teams are elite to the point where you already know which two teams will be going to the finals, and one of the two will win. Where are the fans? Where are the passionate fans? Nobody knows. Now you send the teams to the Boys and Girl Championship. Now you got KC, who everybody want to beat, and you got Calabar, who think they're better than KC or as good, and then JC, they're right there with them. The fans, they're invested. You got the old boys club. You got all these fans, but then you got an athlete from somewhere else who comes in and they're representing, and then they leave. They go to Carifta. They compete against you, but they compete against you in class 3. What about when they come back next year? Who are you going to cheer for as a fan? Are you still going to cheer for the guy who's going to go to Carifta again and try to beat you again? You see where you start destroying. And I'm saying that you're building the athlete. You're building the athlete because it's the right thing to do. But for who? Let's see what this guy continues to say.
And because 100 athletes across how many schools in Jamaica compete at champs? Over 200 schools. That's less than 2 athletes per school. Does that mean that the sky is falling? I don't think it is. It just means that there probably kids are coming here because they realize it's an opportunity to come to the best track and field high school meet in the world as it relates to champs. and to perhaps giving Jamaica a strong sporting culture in high school, their kids a chance to develop and then probably matriculate to US universities or British universities where scholarships are being offered. So I think it's another, I don't think it's an overreaction to whatever the perception was that, there's an increase in the number of athletes from other countries competing at sports in high schools in Jamaica.
Yeah, Leighton.
All right. You see, the idea of bending it while it's young, I don't see any problem with that. I don't see any problem with bending it while it is young, because you're saying that you don't see 10,000 people flocking to Jamaica to compete. What if you saw 10,000 people flocking to Jamaica to compete? What would you do at that point? How would you handle it? How do you fix that? You want to bend it while it's young. Okay. Traveling to the United States of America, why did they put a visa program in place? I'm going to leave it at that.
In the past, overseas athletes coming into the Jamaica high school system would have been sporadic. No, it isn't. But you just made a good point. Even though the numbers have increased dramatically, percentage-wise, it is still a relatively low number. And while track and field may be the sport that most embraces it, it is now becoming prevalent in football as well.
Sorry, finish the question, sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say that the ISA boss has declined to talk to us at the moment about it. So I get the impression that there is either some clarity that needs to be advertised on this issue, or some level of discomfort. You yourself just mentioned that you haven't seen the reasons why the ISA principals would have come to this decision.
How could you genuinely give a reason? It's very difficult to give a reason, because you're talking about the development of students. You're talking about the development of children, and it's very sensitive. The critics can come up with a reason. And all right, talking about legacy, how do you ensure a legacy? Let's say, for example, you have 2 children, but then you have a person who you just really like, and that person, they're more obedient than your children. They do whatever you ask them to do, and you love them so much, and now you're gonna leave an inheritance. Are you gonna just give your inheritance to the person that you are so fond of just because they're obedient? Or is it that you're gonna pass that legacy down to your children? Some things are very difficult to explain, and the principals, I think, were deliberate in building ISA Boys and Girls Championship to where it is. I think they were deliberate. Remember, when that Trinidad and Tobago president explained what he saw, he said that it was precise, it was scientific, and it was deliberate. It was precise, scientific, and deliberate. Wouldn't you think that the principals declining to give an explanation is precise, scientific, and deliberate? Giving an explanation could be the reason why if they give an explanation, it could literally explain why they're as good as they are. Some things you really just leave it alone. It's got good question. This is one thing I like about Sports Max. They ask the most intrusive questions to get the answer that they need. Journey with Killeen, you're saying that a cap would be good, but do we really need it now? Well, do we need it now? When do we need it? If we don't need it now, when? There are things that are just supposed to be yours. There are things that should be yours. Now, you want to win again. Let's say you want to have athletes go to MVP. That's good. Racers Track Club, even better. Titans, nice. Champs, why? Why? Why champs? Think about why. And if you are able to answer that question, why champs? Why not MVP? Why not racers? Why not Titans? No, champs. The reason I could tell you just from my perspective, the reason is because You want the athlete to gain something early, but there's a ramification to it. You're going to divide the fans. You're going to divide the fans. And when fans lose interest, athletes will lose interest as well. How will you divide the fans? That's not like a huge question. How could you divide the fans by giving them somebody else to cheer for? Now you gave them somebody else to cheer for. They and that person go back to competing for their own country, and then they come back again. Do you continue to cheer? That's where the issue is. You cannot bond with the athlete anymore. You cannot create that real bond. You cannot create that real bond. You'll have to just like them because the school they're going to, not because the fact that they're going to compete for the country forever, or for as long as they're healthy, or as long as they're loyal, or as long as they get paid. Image. The discomfort is there because something is not right there. In a poor country that is finally starting to make a name, only a few will benefit from this new trend, and it won't be the children of Jamaica. Appreciate that comment, man. My thoughts exactly. Who benefits from everything financial in Jamaica? Everything that is related to status in Jamaica. Who benefits? If it relates to status, who benefits from it? Jamaica had a airline at one point. They got rid of it. Who benefits from that? Jamaica got rid of, like, for example, when Jamaica decided that they were going to outsource the highway, what did they give up? They gave up the country, pieces of the country, or a time frame where others can utilize the country. You have to give up something. What about if it's yours? What do you give up? You give up the fan. You give up the something where the fans lose something. The fans lose a genuine person who they can cheer for when you give up a spot to somebody else from somewhere else. You can't bond with them. It's just different, and the principles not saying why. There's some things that you just don't explain. Why would you? How could you explain?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like they are not clear as to why they want to make this, they impose this rule. I think it's a situation where we've seen, look, one of the realities is that there's a perception out there that some schools recruit athletes from abroad, wherever they're coming from, whether it's Africa or the rest of the Caribbean, so that they're able to win champs, because that's the big event in Jamaica every year. Is it a reality? I'm not quite sure it is. I mean, look at what has happened. But let's use Kingston College, because that's where a lot of the narrative has been in the last few years. Did the athletes that have come in made that significant difference to Kingston College's ability to win champs over Calabar or Jamaica College or not? Jamaica College also has a few overseas athletes. They didn't win champs. They haven't won champs in a while. So it's for me, it's about giving athletes who want to come. Look, Jamaica has the biggest track and field high school meet in the world, possibly, right? The news has spread significantly since the days when Usain Bolt blew up in 2008, when champs became the focus of a lot of countries across the world about the development of track and field. We have a very strong culture in track and field in Jamaica. Therefore, a lot of kids probably would want to come here to try their luck, to test the water, to see whether or not they have what it takes to become a world-class athlete. In doing that, there are other opportunities that present themselves in other sports like football or basketball, because Jamaica is also a conduit into the United States, where there are massive opportunities for athletes who play those sports, whether it's scholarships or the NBA or D-League or whatever the opportunity is. So I think you will see an increase in numbers, but I don't think those numbers equate to a threat to whatever currently exists in Jamaica today.
All right, you see, he explained so much, even more than what I even thought of. Now, if you have that opportunity to recruit, because this goes two ways, right? You're saying I was saying that the countries would have sent their best to the country, to Jamaica, so that their best could develop, go back, and compete against us and divide the fans. Because again, I think the fans and the rivals are what make champs what it is. The rivalry, absolutely. Now explaining that the Jamaican coaches or administrators or whoever could potentially go seek out some of the best athletes to bring them there to win against a rival school. That shows where corruption starts. That shows how corruption starts. And then when it starts, it continues until it reaches to the point where you either start selling, paying for this, paying for that, and then the purity dies out. And who knows about it? Who would know more about it than the students, the athletes, the ones who put blood, sweat, and tears into it? Then they get demotivated. It should stay pure. Now that he explained it to this extent, it should stay pure. From my perspective, it should stay pure. But I don't have any dog. Well, I might say I have a dog in the fight, but what can I do about it, right? I see the potential for it becoming corrupt. If you can recruit athletes just to help you win champs, it could get corrupt. That's just the truth. And you cannot trivialize the fact that going to recruit athletes to win against your rival could create an opportunity for corruption. Let's keep it going.
And I think we should probably embrace those opportunities because, as I mentioned at the outset, a talented young athlete coming into Jamaica could very well make the difference in terms of some of even the non-traditional, well, not only non-traditional events, but some of the events that Jamaica is not necessarily strong in. And we've seen growth in some of those areas already. So I don't know where it just seems like a very, odd reaction to a problem that is not really a problem.
All right.
But why? But why would the brightest minds, the ones that are molding the future of the athletes, say no? Why would they say no? Why would the principals decide against it and stay tight-lipped about it? Why? That's like a big question. Why? The principals are saying no. Those are the ones that are brainstorming, planning ahead. Those are the ones who have a dog in the fight, who really have a dog in the fight. Now, if you're saying that you could bring athletes in to help you, to help your team in terms of helping them become stronger, the principal could have said, all right, yeah, that makes sense. But they could also see where the corruption affect them. They could see it. So I can understand it. But again, if they're able to bring schools or athletes who are just as good from outside as a school to represent against the schools in Jamaica, that seems a little bit more fair. We run the risk of losing records. We run the risk of seeing something other than those traditional schools and this traditional nationality by inviting some school from somewhere else to represent at the boys and girls champs. But that would be a motivation not to lose to that elite athlete for sure, because it doesn't matter what the rivalry is, they would want to make sure the pride trumps the rivalry. They would want to keep it there. But having the athlete coming in and you cheer for them and then compete against them, you cheer against them, then come back and you should cheer for them, your fans will get divided. I really do. I really believe your fans will get divided. I just can't imagine you cheering for two schools at the same time. If you have two children in two different schools, then yes, you'll cheer for both. And you just, at that point, it's like, whatever. It's like you don't really as passionate as you would if it was just one child at one school. So the question was, is a limit participation of foreign students over 100 athletes participated at champs. Should Jamaica restrict international athletes? That's a question for the. What about you guys in the chat? Do you think they should? I see that MH is saying it should stay pure. Journey with Kelly is saying that it should be open to whoever wants to. I am saying that they should at least have, they should give them the opportunity, but should not allow them to really take a person's space in a class, because there are athletes who are pretty good. Just they only lost a race. That's the only reason why they didn't make it into champs, but they're really good. But if it wasn't for that person, they might have made it into champs. So I wouldn't want somebody else to replace a person who will represent the country in the future in a class, which ultimately replace them in maybe Carifta, because somebody, there's just so much that can spiral out of control. I don't know if this live made any sense, if it goes in the direction where I was kind of thinking that it might have gone, but I might close out with just reading some comments that I originally had. I saw some comments on the video that I originally post, so I'll just close out with reading those. All right, let me finish this video and
Hold
then
it right there, Leighton. We're going to go to a break here on the
okay.
Sports Max
No need
Zone.
to
When we
close it
return,
up because Sportsmax finishing up theirs. So I'm gonna go ahead and read some comments on my original video, the one that I uploaded, and I saw a few comments on that one. So I'm gonna just read some of the comments just because. And yeah, so the comments, that some comments stood out more than some. 876 most valuable treasure is saying that everybody want to come and emulate from Jamaica, but don't want to give credit. Soon we will hear their future generation saying that they started it. And she made a point here. Singapore came and emulate, then goes back home and uplift their country to one of the richest in the world, and that's through their G20. And if you know G20 is like the toughest, the 20 richest country globally, or 20 most powerful country globally. Believe it or not, Jamaica music birthed most popular genre, but yet a lot of them give credit to the world. Don't give credit. The world have eyes on Jamaica track and field strategies. Jamaica and its people are special and very gifted. I truly agree. It always starts with research. Just think about how scientists became who they are. It starts with research. It's just how it works. You have to research the competition. If you really want to get good at anything, you have to research the person that you want to beat. And after you research them, then you capitalize on whatever you learned. That's what I think. And ultimately, they will. Another comment here. Disagree with your analysis. Having investment in your infrastructure does not mean you sold it. Do the things you can do well. It's basically saying do whatever you can do well and leave the experts to do what they can do. So you outsource to experts for them to do what you can't do. I agree. If you need engineers, you get engineers. Getting the highway built in Jamaica is a very good idea, very good move, because it helped with so many things. It cut the travel time by at least 40%. And it also helped with logistics. Before, you'd have to travel all this over hills and valleys just to bring something from country to town, from Ochi to Kingston, from Montego Bay to Kingston. Even going to Portland now, it's so easy. It helps, and it might help going into the future. I agree. It's a good strategy to get those infrastructure in place, even while losing some really valuable resources, because you have to give to get, right? I understand it. I agree. But what about when you don't need the help? When you don't need the help, you just don't need it. You outsource what you need, right? I agree. Julio Ibanez. Trinidad is a super duper bad mind island. Oh God. Super duper. A long time to hear nothing like that. But I think I read this comment and I see what you're saying. There are a few replies to it. There are a few replies to it. Um, talk truth now. Not spreading hate or anything, but I've been around some of them and secretly copying. Then they say it's a Caribbean thing. Again, I can tell that you have seen it for real. Whenever it suits, it's Caribbean. But whenever it's winning time and they're winning, it's not Caribbean. It's beating Jamaica. Some things is yours and it should be yours. You should keep it. That's how I see it. That's genuinely how I see it. There are things that are yours. The same way how you see soca for Trinidad, it's Trinidad's. It's soca, it's theirs. Jamaica enjoy it, good. You cannot claim it. You cannot say that Jamaica started it. But I can tell you this: in cricket, where Jamaica made so much advancement, they eliminate Jamaica's input whenever they get the opportunity to. It's true. That's how I see it. It's real. So I'm gonna wrap this up here. Thanks for those who stopped by. I'm sorry if this was not exactly how I envisioned it or how you might have envisioned it, but your input are always welcome. The conversation continues. I'm sure everybody have an opinion. Everybody would like to share theirs. Everybody would like to hear somebody else's opinion. Sometimes it would really truly be appreciated if somebody choose to join the live, give an a perspective, and just help somebody else learn, because there are some people who have more knowledge than some of us, some people who can articulate it much better than we can. And the platform is open to whoever choose to, to lend a voice. So for MH, truly appreciate you stopping by. Journey with Colleen, appreciate it. Jan Mark, always here. Big up on yourself, respect. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Rewrite the narrative, like, share, and subscribe. And guys, if you have any topics that you think might be good for discussion, I would be happy to lend a voice to it, a platform, open it, you join in, we have a discussion, spread the chat, somebody else join in. That's exactly how these platforms work. You just, this is how you could start a conversation and keep a community going. I want to thank you all so much. Still, rewrite the narrative, like, share, and subscribe.